So, good evening, welcome. We're really excited to be at the point that we're at to launch our website and tell you a little bit about what we've been doing. Everybody with a co-host next to their name is a member of the adult adoptee team. We're just going to all wave and say hello. We're going to kick off the evening with Liz. She's going to tell you a little bit about how we came to be and the adult adoptee movement. And then we're going to hand over to Dawn, who's going to tell you a little bit about the website. After that, there will be time for questions and answers. I would ask you all to mute while Liz and Dawn are speaking, please, just so that we don't pick up any background noise. And with that, I'm going to hand over to Liz.
Hi everyone, sorry if I look down, I've got lots of notes, I don't want to forget anything. Hello and welcome. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us for our website launch. We are so excited, not just to show you the website, but just to showcase our adult adoptee movement with you. Yeah, can you give us another wave, our founders? There we all are. We're few in number. There aren't very many of us, but we've really come together as a team to create this movement. Each one of us brings our own skills. Some of us are tech wizards. I'm not among them. Hence this wonderful website. Some of us are creative writers. Some of us have a broad knowledge of politics, legislation and processes. Some of us have marketing and advertising experience. And some of us are complementary therapists. But the one thing we do share is that we're all adopted. So we all have a wealth of rich lived experience, which we hope to impart to social workers, clinicians, GPs, therapists, counsellors, psychologists, those who work in education and any other relevant bodies, also to the wider public, to both hopeful and current adoptive parents, and even to our friends and families. So in brief, our main aims are to raise adoptee voices, because they have been and still are so unheard and unacknowledged, and to campaign on issues that affect adult adoptees. In the words of Chris Whitty, next slide please, Dawn. So how our movement came about. We're a group of adult adoptees who gave evidence to the Joint Committee on Human Rights, the JCHR as we'll call it from now on, inquiry into the right to family life, adoption of children of unmarried women, 1949 to 1976. For some, this was a moment when we thought we were being heard and our struggles were being acknowledged. We were therefore willing to share our stories and open up about the ways in which adoption has affected us. And if you don't know about this inquiry, I'm just going to tell you a bit about it because it is the bedrock of how we came to be, really. So the JCHR inquiry. On the 23rd of September 21, the inquiry was announced by the JCHR. The right to family life, adoption of children of unmarried women, 1949 to 1976. On the 15th of December 21, 3 academic expert witnesses gave oral evidence to the JCHR in Parliament. On the 16th of March 22, myself as an adoptee and 2 birth mothers gave their oral evidence to the JCHR in Parliament. On the 27th of April 22, there was a round table event. Many of our founding members went and took part in that. On the 25th of May 22, the then Secretary of State Nadeem Zahawi gave his oral evidence to the JCHR in Parliament. And on the 15th of July 22, the JCHR inquiry report was published. October 22 was the adult adoptee movement document issued in response to that JCHR inquiry evidence report. It's a very big beefy document, all 38 pages of which are on the website. You can just see what that is later. So we distributed our response document far and wide. We sent it to MPs, we sent it to journalists, other adoptee activist groups, to charities, to lawyers and to influencers. I feel like it was the JCHR inquiry that was the turning point for we adoptees. It was important because it was looking into historical forced adoptions, but it also gave adult adoptees the chance to be heard, to share our stories, and in doing that, to have our struggles acknowledged and validated. For most of us, and there were many of us who gave written, oral and roundtable evidence, it was the very first time we'd ever spoken about our adoption experiences. It was both empowering and terrifying. Yet it gave some of us confidence, knowing that many of our community were doing the same, to open up and share our stories. Can we have the next slide, Dawn? Problems with the inquiry. I love how this slide begins. Can we just say problem one, Nadeem Zahawi, indeed. I just want to read out the transcript with some of Nadeem Zahawi's words from the day that he gave his oral evidence to the inquiry. I went to London that day to watch, and I was sitting feet behind him, and it was particularly difficult and triggering hearing what he had to say. Nadeem Zahawi, I hear what you say. I'm going to repeat my words again. I've expressed my deep, deep regret very publicly and repeatedly, as I do again today, but I genuinely feel that the whole of society failed these women and children, and that is where I come to this from. Joanna Cherry, have you been advised that the government cannot make an apology for legal reasons such as civil liability? Is that the reason for the reluctance to make an apology? Nadeem Zahawi, I have not been advised of that. My very strong view is that much of what happened at the time was cultural. Member of the public gallery, it was the government. Nadeem Zahawi, whether it was driven by Coram Bath or Barnardo's or church groups, that is what happened. However, I'm happy to say that once you've completed your report, I will write to you with my position on this. So Zahawi basically asserted that it was society and its attitudes that was responsible for forced adoptions, not the UK government. At times there were anguished cries from the public gallery around me. He did not turn around once to acknowledge any of this. What Zahawi fails to recognise is that from 1948, when the government made closed adoption legal, Barnardo's, churches, government agencies and others all colluded to force adoptions. Problem two, we feel that the focus of this inquiry was on the unmarried women rather than the adoptees, possibly because these women were fully functioning, cognizant adults when forced adoption happened to them, that they were upheld as the ones who bore the full brunt of this experience. With all respect to the birth first mothers, we just felt that adoptees were second level in this inquiry somehow, almost as if at times the blank slate baby narrative took over again a bit, which leads me on to problem three, that adult adoptees are invisible, or as we frequently find in dealings with adoption agencies and their social media public forums, that adoptees should be invisible. We are all too often silenced in the public arena by the very institutions who create adoptees, and that's the adoption agencies, many of whom say that they offer lifelong support to adoptees, yet who in reality are largely by adopters for adopters. This is why we're creating our own safe spaces where adoptees can have their own voice. Slide 4, please, Dawn. So, our call to action. With fire in our bellies, enthusiasm for our cause, and in an attempt to finally get our voices heard out there, we leapt into action. We spent hundreds of hours on Zoom calls, group chats, planning, investigating, researching, forging links, finding allies. Our first task was to produce our own response to the JCHR report, which we published in October 2022. And we set out 14 recommendations. We've listed these on our website, which you can find later. We built a social media presence where we're particularly active in raising awareness of the lifelong impact of adoption and calling out unacceptable practice. For instance, challenging Adoption UK for their lack of support for and understanding of the lifelong effects of adoption on adult adoptees. Our logo. We thought long and hard about this. We wanted something which represented the complexities of adoption, which stood for both the diversities and the togetherness of our experiences. And so we came up with our tree that you can see here. You'll notice that this tree has no roots, which is like how many adoptees feel because we were severed from our families, our ancestry, etc. I also like how the different colours of the leaves represent how many different types of adoptees there are among our community. For example, we have transracial adoptees, inter-country, late discovery, LGBTQ adoptees, adoptees who have suffered abuse within their adoptions, adoptees who are estranged from either their adoptive families or their birth families. Apologies if I've missed anyone out there, but I think it's a great little logo that represents us all. Our partnerships. We want to change the narrative of adoption. Current adoption agencies are very much aware of us, because we've been making quite the noise on social media, educating and advocating, but they choose not to fully support us. Adoption agencies are big, they make money, and we're never going to be able to compete. But we want to change how adoption is seen and perceived out there. Typically, it's viewed through rose-tinted spectacles, to be all unicorns and rainbows. And we want to bring the realism of our lived experience, which covers many decades. And we want to use this to inform those policymakers and service providers. Next slide, please, Dawn. Okay, so priorities for us. Quite often we find that we have so much that we want to achieve as a movement, as a group, that it's easy to try to do it all, to do it now, and we simply can't. So quite often we have to meet, take stock, check ourselves, and focus on our priorities. We had 14 recommendations in our report, and we tried to cover all kinds of adoptee experiences and wants in those recommendations. Currently, there's simply not enough time or boots on the ground for us to be working on every single recommendation all of the time in equal measure. So an apology from the UK government is up there, and although it would be amazing to get an apology, for us, an apology is just not enough. It's more about action, not just for adult adoptees, but for the many adoptees who come behind us. So we've already started working on our priorities, and priority one for us as a group is mental health support. Undoubtedly our biggest priority, the provision of mental health support for adult adoptees, is woefully inadequate. It's also currently regulated by Ofsted, which is fine for children, but is not an appropriate regulation for adults. But we're hoping this will change. There's currently an Ofsted consultation out at the moment where the Department for Education is proposing a change in the law to allow us to easier access therapy. So we'll be responding to this consultation both individually and as the adult adoptee movement, and we'll make this available, our response, on our website and social media. We recently had a meeting with the BACP, which is the British Association for Counselling and Psychotherapy, to see how we can work with them to create easier access to adoption competent therapists and to regulate and monitor appropriate counselling. It was a positive meeting where we felt listened to with respect, so that was great. Recognition of our trauma. Adoption trauma and relinquishment trauma are not recognised by the NHS, leaving those who have experienced these traumas unaware of lifelong potential impact on their mental health. As a result, many adoptees seek support for mental health issues without realising that adoption may be either the root cause or a contributing factor. We need awareness and compassion for the lifelong issues we face, some of which are particularly poignant for adoptees, baby loss, pregnancy, etc. We want to work with and educate maternity staff, for example, and also GPs who are on the front line and often our first point of contact. We want them to be aware of the many issues adoptees face so that they can recognise it and then signpost us to the right support. Treatment. Adoption trauma can present in a variety of ways, which leads to diagnoses of, for example, complex PTSD, depression, generalised anxiety disorder, ADHD. Of course, it's possible that adoptees may also be suffering with any of these conditions I've just mentioned, but it's also important to notice that to acknowledge that we might not fit neatly into these diagnostic boxes. Sometimes, and this has happened to some members of our team, we are medicated for one of the above diagnoses, yet we can see later with hindsight that it was rather adoption trauma at the heart of our issues. The NHS. This encompasses a lot. Awareness of adoption trauma within the NHS as a whole, medical history, etc. We really do believe that further adoptee-led training is required in the whole NHS arena. Tick boxes. We want to see tick boxes on various medical forms, which would allow us to flag, or for it to be flagged, that we are adopted. We believe that at the first point of contact with a counsellor, an important factor to establish is whether an adoption has taken place. Adoptees are sometimes like a ticking time bomb. Big life events can trigger us. Pregnancy, discovery of genetic illnesses, a cancer diagnosis. If we could flag up that a person is adopted up front to clinicians, GPs, healthcare professionals, etc., It would help so much in many areas. Also, tick boxes would allow for data on adoptees to be collected. There is so little research done into the long-term effects of adoption, and our outcomes are simply not measured, which is a shame because we're literally sitting here on a wealth of rich lived experience and it's been wasted. In us sharing and researchers looking into and evaluating this experience, it might mean that we are treated quite differently in, say, a pregnancy from start to finish. So again, this could really help those adoptees coming up behind us. Medical records. Where adoptees don't know their medical history, we're treated as blank slates. If we can't provide a medical history, it is presumed that we have no heritable conditions or gene markers, and we're offered no screening. This in turn affects our children who don't have a full family medical history either. Cancer. Adoption adds a further complex layer to a cancer diagnosis. If we have no family history, our treatment plan is based on average risk. Psychologically, we have the impact of how cancer affects our identity, which is already an existing issue for adoptees. We have the fear that there is an unknown family history. So, along with the shock of a cancer diagnosis in itself, we're faced with a multitude of other traumas linked to our adoption. There are lots of resources for cancer, but we've never seen one that includes advice for adoptees. Lastly, we believe that adoption should be classed as an ACE, and if you don't know what an ACE is, it's an adverse childhood experience. We think it would be beneficial for all counsellors to ascertain as soon as is practicable whether somebody's adopted. Adoption is not a one-time event. It's a lifelong experience which throws up many issues throughout our lives. During puberty, which comes with its own identity issues, relationships, becoming pregnant, possibly losing a baby through miscarriage, giving birth, a serious illness, etc. As adoptees, sometimes even we don't know and fully understand how adoption has affected us until one of these big life events happens and we're forced into confronting our adoption experience all over again, often alone. Currently, if a child loses a parent, that is considered to be an adverse childhood experience, and various measures are put in place. But if a child loses a parent through adoption, there's currently nothing put in place for support. We want to change this. It's very important to us as a group, and we will begin campaigning for this in due course. Next slide, this is the last one. We have a presence across several social media platforms. Our biggest and most active is on Twitter. We now have nearly 740 followers, but we're also on Facebook, Instagram, and most recently LinkedIn. We also have an email address where you can contact us, and we'll be producing a newsletter. Dawn will show you on the website tour where you can sign up for that. So that's it for the introduction to our adult adoptee movement. We've all been working and giving our time for free, and with our own jobs, commitments, and busy daily lives, we can only do so much to work on everything we want to achieve. Also, the emotional energy it takes us to prepare and give presentations, to write blogs and content, to speak on webinars, to record podcasts, to give evidence, and sometimes the very content of those presentations does, of course, take its toll. But we have each other, and I do believe that peer support, understanding and empathy among our community with and for each other in a space that is safe for adult adoptees is the way forward. And we hope that this is what we've created here for everybody. So please do support us in whatever way you feel you can, even if that's just liking and sharing our content and subscribing to our newsletter. Thank you, each and every one of you who's here now, so much for listening. And now I'm going to hand over to Dawn to show you around our shiny website.
Lovely, thanks, Liz.
Thank you.
Okay, so thanks everybody, everyone for coming tonight. So as you know, we are unfunded, and the next stage for us is to set ourselves up as a KIC, Community Interest Company, which is a limited company with charitable and community-based objectives. so that we can gain more funding to further our work. So firstly, we can't thank Greg at Adoptees United enough for offering to host our website for us. So it's a big welcome to adultadoptee.org.uk. So we want to use our lived experience to change the narrative of adoption and make sure that adoptees are at the centre of all conversations. All conversations around adoption. Our homepage highlights our mission and how we want to advocate and to support, educate and support. We've worked closely with Sam, our Scottish friends, and they'll be having an area on the website. A couple of weeks ago, we were on a webinar with the Olive Foundation as a panel, highlighting the barriers facing adult adoptees when trying to access mental health support. There were 106 participants, with many social workers, counsellors, adoptees and adopters present. We've also recorded a podcast with Adoptees United, which will be released in the near future. We've been talking about how we got together as a group and the parallels between US and UK adoptee communities. We've got our About Us page. So we look at the frustrations we faced during the JCHR inquiry, and we also use this page to introduce ourselves. As you'll understand, everyone's adoption is complicated and deeply personal. So we respect each other's privacy, and we only use personal information for those of us who are comfortable with being identified. We've got a section on the website for the JCHR inquiry. Our response document is available for download, and it was written to mirror the JCHR inquiry. But we have included areas that were excluded from the inquiry, such as inter-country adoptions and revocation, as well as research into the role of intermediaries. We've listed our recommendations, and so these are our 14 recommendations, and each of the drop-down gives the reasons behind these recommendations. We've also got a section on the JCHR inquiry, where we've got a link to the actual report from the JCHR and the purpose of the inquiry. We've got another section on the media updates. So we're pleased with the increase in media awareness and the support from the JCHR committee in pushing the government for a response. They were due to respond 15th of September last year, and we're still waiting. There's a long way to go. We face a difficulty that what we're saying is uncomfortable and challenges current practice, but until the truth is properly understood, nothing will ever change. So last week, Liz was on the Committee Corridor podcast with Joanna Cherry. In November, there was an exhibition in Parliament. We went as a group. It was incredibly moving to see your life depicted like this and being shoulder to shoulder with people who understood. It was almost a sense of mourning for how our lives could have been. Duncan Kennedy has produced some excellent footage on the impact of adoption on both the birth mothers and for adoptees. So we've been talking a lot about the lifelong impact of adoption. We're tired of hearing that adoption is different, things have changed. Firstly, how can they have changed when our lived experience and our health and wellbeing outcomes have never been tracked? Our generation of adoptees grew up being told we were lucky to be adopted. We've faced the challenges completely unaware that these are exacerbated by the trauma of adoption. So what has come to the fore with the discussions we've had with agencies that are there to support adoptees is how we've raised issues about things they've never, ever considered, the impact on key life stages such as relationships, pregnancies, health screening. We've got a section here on frequently asked questions. We've answered a range of common questions, but all very much focused on the adoptee, removing any guilt that the adoptee may have about asking these questions. And we've also got a section on adopters, but answered from the viewpoint of an adoptee. We've got a section on the website for searching. So we've looked, so what other community faces the same barriers, social and economic, to tracing their natural family? In this section, we've got some hints and tips and links for accessing records. And no, your records probably weren't destroyed in a fire. We've got information on tracing. So we look at intermediaries, contact registers, and ancestry sites, and professional search companies. And then if you're looking at doing DNA testing, we've got some hints and tips here if you're using DNA to search, with some really useful links. Our resource section here, we've got links to websites, podcasts, and reports that we ourselves have found really useful. And we want to share these with the rest of the community. We've also got a section here for worldwide adoptee support. We're really concerned that no one actually wants to take responsibility and acknowledge the extra layers of trauma and barriers faced by transracial adoptees and inter-country adoptees. And we're certain that this resource section will be growing and growing. In our events section, we've got lots planned, and we'll keep you informed on this page, and we'll also have links to previous recordings. So we're hoping soon to have the recording for the webinar that we did recently. This page here on the blogs is probably the most difficult one for us, in that it's a complete collection of our personal reflections, and we've chosen this to challenge current and past practices. We're highlighting how these have failed us as a community. So how can you help us? Well, we're just getting started on LinkedIn. We've got the links at the bottom of the website. So it'd be great for you to share our posts, spread the word, and even send us in guest blogs. We want our website to be reflective of all adoptees. We've also got a newsletter, so that if you can sign up to the newsletter, then you can keep informed of what we're doing and where we're at. So just sort of to conclude what we're about, is there were 500,000 babies adopted between 1949 and 1976. So there's a conservative estimate that 185,000 of those adoptions were forced. But any adoption comes with trauma. And we need to make sure that our voices are heard to change the narrative for the generations of adoptees that are coming up behind us. There's too much wasted time on adoption barometers, questions all coming from organisations who really don't understand the struggles that we face, and neither is it in their interest to. So let's make sure that over 7 decades of lived experience is listened to. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Dawn and Liz. That was brilliant. Sorry. Does anybody have any questions? I'll throw the floor open. If you put your hand up, then I'll see you on my little view. That was brilliant though, and I think it properly reflected what we've been doing behind the scenes and how far we've come.
When are you going live?
The website is live now.
Oh, it's live, so we can copy and paste the website.
Yeah.
Start sharing.
Yeah.
Yes, share away.
The link. Can you put the link in the chat?
I can do, yeah.
Start.
Yeah, okay. We've got a few other things that we're sort of got planning. Hi, Rosie. I see your hand up. You're muted.
Oh, no, that's it. Sorry, I got a bit stuck there. I just think it's fantastic. What you've done is amazing. And the website is so professional looking. That's, it just looks so credible. So just well done to all of you. I really, really appreciate your efforts. I can imagine the hours that have gone into it, and it's really appreciated from me. Have you got any plans to have an event or anything where we could get together?
we're still this has taken everything to get to here. We ideally we'd like to get some peer support up and running. In the absence of professional help, we've sort of been getting support from each other, and that's been what's been happening in the adoptee community, I think, across the board. There's lots of groups and things of peer groups getting together. Ideally, I mean, we'd love to have a get together, and we'd love to have a retreat. There's lots of things that we'd like to do down the line, but I think that we're just getting going, and we're just sort of looking at how we work together as a team and what goals we have. There are some important things that we want to get boxed away, like the tick box, and so yeah, there are that we'd love to. I mean, we've talked about it was because it was great when we got together for the JCHR inquiry and we went to look at the exhibition. I will get there. In the Houses of Parliament, just being together, we went for a coffee, and there was about 8 of us, I think, and just being together with a load of adoptees, we didn't stop talking. We just talked and talked and talked, and I was trying to record it and I couldn't, because there was so much going on and so many little conversations going on between people. So yeah, I think getting adoptees together is so important for us. And I think the rest of the team were finding that actually having each other to fall back on, because a lot of the complex issues that come with adoption aren't recognized or even acknowledged by people who aren't adopted. So being around people that acknowledge those things is hugely validating. But I'm going to let someone else speak. Liz, you speak. Otherwise, I'm going to just speak. I know you've already spoken, but you know.
I'm not quite sure where I've happily had enough of my voice. No, this is, I think we're all a bit giddy and a bit excited, because we literally have been so many hours. My poor husband, I don't even know whether he's in the room, but he's been bringing me my dinner in a bowl. So Dan, if you're there, thank you so much. Yeah, we've spent a lot of time on this. It's our baby. We're proud. We want to share it with everybody, not just experts, professionals, but other adoptees. That's why we're here. That's why we're doing this. We need support. We're trying so hard to get it. And you know, we've done a lot, but we're going up there. We're getting things done. So yeah, if you could share our content and follow our newsletter, and who knows where we're going to end up. That's enough from me. Thank you.
Anybody else? I'm looking out. Sorry.
Yeah, I think it would be great if you know, we could get some more guest blogs and everything, because obviously our experience, you know, we've written about our own experiences, but you know, although we've got a very wide experience as a group, we're still not fully representative of the adoptee community. You know, everybody's adoption experiences are very, very different. So, you know, please, if you want to write a guest blog, then please send it in to us. And if you want to have it as anonymous, that's absolutely fine as well. What we've done for people who want to be anonymous is that we'll just put like our little tree logo up for the photo and just put it as anon, so completely non-identifying. So yes, but if you do want to write guest blogs, then that would be really welcome from us.
And I would add to that, just have a look at what we've written already and see if there's anything you want to add, because we've got some ideas coming down the line. We've got some more things that we want to say, but there's plenty more that could be written on there from any perspectives.
Quick question: when we're I can post it on all my socials. Shall I say, "Come join the movement"? I mean, how would you want us to word this?
It's a good question, because we haven't actually got a membership option at the
Right.
moment, and I mean that one of our next stages, we're going to register ourselves as some kind of charitable organisation, and we may then think about a membership option, but at the moment it's share, come and speak to us, come and share our content, come and read our
Watch this
website.
new movement
Yeah.
growing or something.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, I think it's definitely like that. It's sort of, yeah, just to sort of watch the movement growing, because I think, you know, we want to be a focal point to send people for different resources and just to sort of gather information, really. As we say, it's amazing, you know, we set out our recommendations over the summer because we were trying to time our response to come out with the government's response. And so from the conversations that we've had with organisations and other adoptees since July, we've really sort of changed some of our things, you know, sort of putting adoption as an ACE wasn't really at the forefront of our knowledge, or NHS tick boxes. So it's sort of through finding all this out, then we do really sort of are able to then to sort of focus and fine tune what we're going to be able to.
I was muted. We do have some plans for some sort of webinars, podcast type things, working with Dr. Karen, who is kind of our in-house doctor, who's been teaching us all about trauma, co-regulation, systemic aspects of adoption. And if you look on our Twitter, you will see a link, or on our Facebook page and on our Insta, I think. I don't know, Vanessa, a link to a paper that's just been published about systemic aspects in adoption, and I really recommend it. I really recommend a read. There's something very, very validating within it. So we're hoping to do a series of sort of webinar panel type things with Dr. Karen in March, hopefully, and we'll keep you updated when they're going out, because there will be an opportunity to attend those. That is something that we've got planned in the pipeline.
Yeah, I think another important aspect as well is the Ofsted consultancy that's coming up. I think, you know, if we can get as many people to actually take part in that, we're going to be publishing, hopefully next week, our sort of open response as a movement, because what we're really concerned about is that, yes, it's absolutely great that they're going to remove the Ofsted part, but are we then going to be left high and dry as a community without proper informed trauma counselling? That's one area that we are really concerned about.
I can see a hand up. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Do you want to ask your question before I murder your name?
Hi, Vic.
Hi.
We've talked before. I'm Professor Nayani Kamaguchi from Durham University, and I've thankfully been invited by Liz. So thank you, Liz, for having me here. I think we talked a while ago, Vic, Liz, and myself. We were putting in a grant with the ESRC in September in conversation with Ma at that point, and we've been shortlisted for that position right now, and putting in a full grant on apology and adoption, which looks at transnational adoption. I've been working with Bangladeshi transnational adoptions for many years, and also looking at historic forced adoption and also contemporary forced adoption. So there's three big strands that we are looking at together, and we are surprised, but we've been shortlisted. So one of the things that's obviously been an issue to think about is things were moving forward, what we thought in September, and then Liz Truss and Rishi Sunak happened, and things have been stalled, or the world happened, whatever. So my question and thinking about all the work that's going on among all of you is what are the ways we can suggest that we can the work can feed into all the work that you've been doing and that we are obviously learning from as researchers can feed into the any kind of policy recommendations. You know, the policy situation was pretty much in place in September, as far as I know. In fact, we had a conversation with colleagues who were giving testimonies or that an apology was in the offing, and then everything went and then it didn't happen. So what are the ways we as researchers can help any of the organizations to make this happen? The apology and thereafter, obviously the apology is rhetoric, but it's an important rhetoric at one stage. But what happens after that, all the things that you've outlined, what are the ways we can do it in collaboration with and MA?
And this is I mean, this is one of the things we've been talking about, certainly around changing policy within government, is who do we approach? Because given the current government is probably not going to be there after the next election, we're thinking maybe the way to go is look at the shadow cabinet and start working with them, so that by the time that they come to power, at least we'd have done some of the back work, and we're not starting afresh. Because if we come in with this government that's maybe only got 18 months left in power tops, we'll do all the work and then they'll lose their seats and then we'll be starting all over again. So to change things, it needs to change in government. And I think this is the whole thing, that government aren't prepared to give an apology, but government are the gatekeepers to everything. So it's, for us, it's encouraging more people to do research around adoption. I mean, and looking at longer outcomes. I've had a couple of research things that have been sent my way recently that's looking at young adoptees, which is important and valid work. However, your views on adoption change over time. And asking young adoptees who are still living at home, possibly are still reliant on their adopters, you're going to get different responses than you do from us gnarly old adoptees that have been out in the world for a while and have dealt with our own adoptee traumas, so have lived it firsthand and know that there are points later on in life where your adoption is going to come to the fore. And so I know I'm going around the houses, but I think it's supporting movements like us. There are other adoptee-led organizations out there, and sort of listening to us. We got approached by someone, and part of their support package, they hadn't thought about the effect that asking adoptees to open up and share their life stories would have on them. But when we share our stories, we trigger ourselves. We need to think about it before going in. We need to have time afterwards. And so they had no support in place. Well, you can't ask adoptees to share their stories and put their hearts out there in the name of research. And we're completely, if you're not going to support them afterwards, if you're not going to acknowledge that actually what they've done is hard emotional toil that needs recognition at the very least. So from someone who has taken part in researches and would, if the right one came my way again, it's all about looking at what you're looking into. Is it actually relevant? Because there's quite a lot of research done with young adoptees. Is it relevant for me as an older adoptee? And what are you doing to support me if I'm going to contribute? Because I'm not going to take part in something if I don't feel that I'm safe. But I'll throw that open to everyone else, because we're a group, so we lots of views, and we don't all agree all the time.
Yeah, I mean, I think sort of definitely research into, how it has affected us over the years, because it's like, as Vic says, there's a lot of research being done on younger adoptees, but I just think that, when we've talked as a group, there's been things that I would never have put down to adoption. I mean, I was 56 last November. And for the first time, I actually understood that I always had a wobble at birthdays, and that was down to adoption. So for the first time, I was able to say to my husband, look, you know, can we just do something, make sure I'm active all day so I don't have to think about it? But that's took me all this time to understand why I've always had a real wobble around my birthday.
Mm.
Can you hear me okay?
Pardon?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hi, Ian here from New Zealand. And firstly, thank you very much for inviting me along to today and the amazing work that you've done. Already, huge sense of connectedness with you all. And I think that's the feeling that I've got from just seeing a few faces on the screen. Your website is going to make a tremendous difference. I've been involved in adoption issues my own since about 1993, I think. And I was the adoptee on the ITV documentary that Monica Films did, and I've been on a few other docos and researches and things. And I think as good as that is, and as good as that is to, I guess, trigger adoptees and put the issue in front of the public, I think it's very much about what levers do we have to get to the government. And it's the same in New Zealand as it would be in England. I'm sure I've been a little bit involved in the birth mothers cases and things. And it's really about making friends with those people who hold the power. And so if you've got close ties to parliamentarians, MPs, researchers, I think that's definitely the way to go, because I think there's only a limited appetite for the poor old adoptees or the poor old birth mothers banging the drum, saying, you know, woe is me. And although that's good in a sense that it gets things out there and it enables a conversation to happen, I think you've got to get to the levers, and the levers unfortunately are MPs. So look, thanks for inviting me. I'll sit back and listen to the great conversations that are happening. But thank you, everybody involved.
No, thank you, Ian. We're lucky. A couple of us have MPs that are not decent MPs. Don't get me wrong, but MPs that have got a little bit of a foot in power. If you understand what I mean. Some of us have got completely ropey MPs who are fit for nothing at all. But we do have a couple in our number that have constituency MPs who are in government. But that doesn't mean anything, because I mean, yeah, we sent our document out to I don't know how many MPs. We all sent them out to our own MPs. I don't know about the rest of the team. I got an automated response and I haven't heard anything since. You're right, it's not that the government don't have an appetite for it, and so that's why we've had to form this movement, because it's like we're going to have to make them hungry then, because it is lifelong. And it does not, and it is generational. You know, my children only have 50% of their medical records. So any inherited genetic stuff that might be coming their way, they're as blind to it as I am. Yeah.
I think the other aspect that I've been more interested in lately is the maternal side of things as well. I've only just actually got back from the UK after having met my maternal half brother and sister for the first time. But I do think there are three groups involved here: the birth mothers, the adoptees, well, more than three. But the birth fathers seem to get away scot-free. So I think there are lots of ways of pulling levers. Yeah.
Thanks. I did see your hand up, Sarah. Did you have a question? Sarah G. I'm looking. Maybe not. Okay. We're getting okay. We're getting close to an hour. So I think what I'm going to do now, unless there's any more questions, I'm going to ask the non-adoptees if they would leave, please. And I'm going to turn the recording off. And then if it's okay with the adoptees, we're just going to keep on just having a chat, because we, like we say, we only reflect our experiences. So to hear from you and what you think and things that could be improved would be amazing. So I'm just going to say goodbye to everybody and I'm going to ask you to please, because I think I can see.
And thank you everyone for coming.
Thank you so much. And this recording will be available at some point on our website.
When we've got the tech sorted.
Yeah. If you're leaving it to me for tech, forget it. But I can manage videos though for some reason.
I just want to say it's great to have this website. It looks amazing, and thank you for all your work, and great to see you again, Vic and Liz and all of you.
Thank you.